It's such an honor to connect with a cat who has really been carving his own path in music, in the racket, so to speak, playing original creative music with his peers and elders. And um, I think that at this point in my existence as a broadcaster, as an author, and as a purveyor of the music, it's just about building a family and a community that gets bigger and bigger, because it is all sort of the offspring of inspiring other people to be themselves and not conforming and twisting yourself in pretzels to try to appease people or um, do what the trends say, be yourself and burn. Knox Chandler, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Great to hear you, man. I wanted you to just talk a little bit about, um, you know, how early on in your life were you committed to searching for your own individual sound?
I mean, Hendrix was big at that time, and I was a big fan of Hendrix, not only for his playing, but actually more for the sounds he was getting out of the instrument. And around that time, I had this is about '68. I saved up enough money um, selling chicken eggs. I used to raise chickens, and
Wow.
uh, and I wound up buying this pre-CBS Fender Mustang. And my dad had this Bogan PA head and this 15-inch speaker that he used to play his records through. And so he sort of handed it over to me, and we rigged it up so I could play my guitar through it. So it would just I could get this great feedback, and I would just spend like endless hours just making noises out of the thing. Um, as well, coming straight out of studying classical guitar. So I put down the classical guitar and just dove into making sounds with the guitar. And then it was we didn't have any effect pedals at that time. Maybe there's like one friend of mine had a big muff, but really we were all the sounds we were getting was by doing stuff with the instrument. And if we want to get distortion, we'd have to just crank the shit out of the amps. And also at the time I had built this uh, ham radio, this Heathkit ham radio,
Wow.
and I used to plug that through a wah-wah pedal into this amp, just cranked up, and I just sounds just sort of. I don't know why. I mean, I studied music in college, and I got deeper into harmony and the theory of it all, but the sounds was what really always attracted me.
Did,
Even in college, when I took up upright bass, I was more interested in what you could do with the bow at different parts of the string, or playing on the bridge, or crackling the bow against the wood to make it sound like it's being chopped. I just I was always exploring, finding sounds that I don't know, just got me excited.
well, I'm so glad that you brought that up because um, I just came back from seeing a couple shows on the West Coast, and there are just points in the show where you know it's such a tribal activity for me. I don't know along the way, not all music, but people got real accustomed to talking over music or
Oh yeah.
music for pacification or music as background noise. And to me it's like I'm hyper focused on the conversation on the bandstand, and there's just certain moments where I close my eyes and look up and just feel completely at peace and even. And I just kind of wanted you to riff on the idea of, regardless of your spiritual inclinations, this this phrase that of God is sound.
Got his sound?
God, yeah, God is sound.
Well, some people will say God is everything. um, I I
I mean,
mean,
just because because of your infatuation with the sounds of environmental stuff, and just it wasn't about the theory, it wasn't about the harmonic Ornette Coleman stuff. It wasn't this heady intellectualism. It was sound itself. It's a sound bath. And I think Zakir Hussain or Mickey Hart said it. It said God is sound. And I kind of wanted you to just riff on that.
uh, well, I mean, I think my experience has been, um, I mean, there's a place for the intellectual stuff, absolutely. But there's also, for me, it's all about conversation. It's and then again, that I look at when you talk about God, I look at like a connection um, that you have with something greater than yourself,
Right.
and which could easily be a group of musicians, or even when things are going good for me in the studio, or even live when I'm just by myself. I always feel when it's really good, it's like it's not me. Somehow I'm channeling something, something takes over, time becomes irrelevant, and you're sort of in the moment, in the ether of it. Uh, it's I I was living in Berlin up until 3 years ago. I was there for like 10 years, and I had the great opportunity of doing what I do with my instrument. Working with all different types of people from different ethnicities, especially these indigenous musicians from Nepal who didn't speak any English.
Wow.
Uh, and we used to like every year. Well, it started. I was asked to do a solo show at this benefit for Nepal. I mean, they had these horrible earthquakes, and so I showed up, and there was this band on stage. There was guys playing drums and bowing these strange instruments, and one guy was actually playing leaves. He collected these leaves, and he would
No, this
like
is so
he,
ridiculous, dude.
he would it sounded
Oh
like
my God,
a
dude.
saxophone. And you know, I found out later he was a sheep farmer,
Right.
and he would just go up in the hills with the sheep, and he would be learn how to play by just grabbing leaves and playing. And so I would do. I asked them. Actually, I had asked an interpreter. I said, I'll start. I'll play for about 10 minutes and have them come one on one up to the stage and join me. You know, playing mouth harps and all sorts of stuff. And and they're very reluctant. They never experienced anything like that. They've never done anything like that, but they did. They came out, and something just magical happened. I mean, we just really clicked. And then every year after that, they'd come through Berlin, and we would do shows. And I found that to be incredibly rewarding because there was no written music, there was no conversation, verbal conversation.
Right.
It's just we get together, and the music would just flow.
I
And then
just
as
I need you. You're really articulate. You're a very articulate cat. And because a lot of this stuff is a lot of people will say it's too hard to put into words, but the Jake Feinberg show is all about explaining the unexplainable. And I think I just remember in Dugu Chancellor, the great drummer, rest in peace. He talked about, as a guy who played on Michael Jackson's albums, played incredible jazz with Hampton Hawes, and also like just Santana for a minute, but he had a chance to play with Thelonious Monk, and or it was with Hampton. He goes, they were. He goes, Hampton. He said Hampton was. They were to maybe a recording session, and he just said Hampton said, guys, we've been sitting here intellectualizing this music for a half hour, haven't played a damn note yet, and I
Mm,
just I want and we're such a verbose society. I mean, we're talking right now. There's so much intellectualization of certain genres of music now that sort of guy who was just turning leaf, making leaves sonically, a sonic palette into a saxophone, or just the minimal talking and just going on and burning it's people are just almost to the point of like they just are so caught up in the performance value of a show, and that word to me is very confining. And I kind of wanted you to talk about how you have learned over time, to sort of get out of your own way and be a channel or a conduit for information coming through you. Where, as the great Terry Haggerty from the Sons of Champlin told me, you have to be able to get off the stage, and when somebody comes up to you and says, "How did you do that?" It's sort of the Socratic method of saying, "You must know what you don't know." And someone comes up to you and says, "How did you do that?" You say, "I have no idea," because it was just
Yeah,
you were merely a channel. And that
yeah.
stuff doesn't happen all the time, but I kind of wanted you to talk about how your evolution as it relates to somebody who is not going to over intellectualize and allow information to come through you from the heavens.
Well, I mean, most of my career was trying to fit in different situations, recording situations, performing situations, and I think the first step was to, I mean, you have to connect. There has to be some connection.
Right.
Um, and I always was been trying to, no matter if even if it's me playing three cowboy chords behind Cyndi Lauper, I still have to have some autonomy. There's something where the way I express the instrument. So the first part is finding how to connect in any
Hmm.
sort of situation, and that comes with listening. You really have to learn to listen. And I find that with a lot of younger musicians these days, they don't know how to listen. I mean, I was teaching at this university in Berlin, and so I was getting a lot of young, really, really talented, really proficient musicians coming through the school, but none of them knew how to listen.
Wow.
I mean, and part of it's the generation. I mean, we were like starved for music growing up, and we didn't have a record store in our town. That was really the only place to own music was to go to a record store. We would hear it on the radio, and what's great about those days of FM radio, they would play like a whole album in its entirety.
Yeah, right. AOR,
Um,
album oriented radio. Yeah.
it was like the FM radio. That's what was really happening there, especially in this area. Um, so uh, we would have to go in, travel maybe a half an hour to get to a record store, and you didn't have a huge choice of what to buy. Um, then you bring it back, and you don't even know that much about it, even don't know anything about who the
Right.
musicians are on
Right.
it
Right.
necessarily. And we'd sit there with the album, we put the album on, and we would listen to the album side in its entirety. They were too lazy or too stoned to, take the needle and move it to the next track. So a lot of those tracks that we probably, if it was today, we probably would just fast forward over. We were sort of forced to listen to, and some of those became the most important pieces of music.
Right.
Something that just didn't rub, did that maybe didn't attract us right away. They sometimes became some of the better pieces. Um, these days, I mean, it's just these small little sound bites. I did some research on this, and it's the attention span is like this, like it just feels like everybody's got ADD. You know, uh,
True.
they they they. I had this one class where I turn off all. I used to do this. Actually, there was a evening course I did that was like 2 hours long, and for 2 hours I would turn the lights off and light a candle and have them just listen in the darkness. And 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 it was so difficult for them. It was so difficult. And but a lot of them came up and said, "Oh, we've never listened to music this way." And to me, that was always how we listened to music. We would, listen to it and turn the lights off and listen to it. We actually would listen.
Yeah, roll
I
up a
mean,
joint and just listen.
and these kids they're listening to it on their iPhones while they're taking the subway or while they're doing the dishes. Or I mean, it's not just sitting down and listening. Um, well, that I think that's really. I think learning to listen is really important. I think, and we're not learning to listen to copy or to analyze. Even though I had to do a lot of that in college, um, it's more about where are you connecting? What feelings and emotions is it bringing out in you, or even more like what are you getting any visual, or
Right.
are you tasting? Is it taste like something? Um,
The
so when you
synesthesia, the synesthesia, yeah.
so when you get together with I mean, especially with more of the music I'm doing these days, like last night I did this gig in New York City. It was amazing. It was with like I had with Joe Hertenstein, who's a phenomenal drummer. It was just a plethora of musicians, including Anthony Coleman and Robbie Coltrane.
Oh,
And there was no discussion about the music, nothing. They Joe put me up there first just to create some of my sound ribbon stuff, and then people would just join in. It was like 3 hours of nonstop music that
I'm
just
sorry,
went
what was the venue on this?
New Blue.
I love that freaking place, man. That's
Yeah.
free. That is so classic. Not a word, not no, no. I mean, and yet that is I just want to go back to one thing because it's, you make a really good point about the attention span and um, these cats that come in though that that have struggled to listen. Is it because, I mean, let's face it, I mean, going back to my interviews with like Lee Sklar, and he'd talk about him and Russ Kunkel and Cooch and Durgy, it was all communal listening, so there was a lot of listening as a group.
Yeah.
And then obviously you were playing together, and yet the kids coming in today are basically, I mean, maybe they have a band or something like that, but for the most part, they're creating and listening to music in isolation. That has a lot to do with it. You're not really listening, or it's a different kind of listening than when you're listening
It's a
communally.
different.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, the whole uh, landscape is different.
yeah.
I mean, also there's been since the days when I'm younger, there's been different styles of music, are basically um, melting pots of other styles. Um, I think it's a matter of being in a society, trying to find yourself in a society that's not so uptight, and it seemed to be a lot. I think there's a lot more patience and tolerance amongst my peers that I see and when I was teaching at the university. These students were like dead set on becoming great. I mean, that's what they just wanted to be great.
Yeah.
Um,
Like you
and
mean like technicians?
technicians,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
and they were looking at people like me who's had a career in the business, like to be able to wave a wand over them. So they'd have so they
Right,
would
right,
have they would have that. And
right.
I think the most important thing is, especially I would say to them, I say, look, people say like you've had an amazing career, you know, you must be really happy about it all or prideful for it. And I would be, well, the reason I do this, because honestly, when you're out there working, it's not the glamour that you think it is. I
No,
mean, you don't sleep, you don't eat well, relationships go by the wayside. I mean, I didn't even get to see my kid take his first steps. Things. It's not an easy life. And you ask me, why do I do it? And the reason is because I have to do it.
exactly.
I mean, it's not. I think it's it and I look at these kids and like I'm in touch with quite a few of them, and some of them are out there actually doing it, and it's very exciting to see. But it all boils down to you know where's your intrinsic motivation? Where's your passion? And what are you focusing on? Um, I honestly think that unless you find your voice in all this, if you're just going to spend your career doing something that's just going to sound like somebody else without finding your voice, I don't think it's sustainable. Sustainable uh, being at my age, for instance, because the thing that's sustainable for me is that I neglected for a long time, because I was always hopping from one group or one artist to another, and trying to fit in. And I learned a lot from it, and I was able to use some of my voice in that. But to really be able to keep doing it, I sort of made a decision like 13 years ago that I really had to change it up. I really had to dive deeper into who I am honestly, and what I want to be doing and what am I trying to say with my instrument.
Um, Knox, uh, did you teach at University of Arts in Berlin?
No, there's a BIM was a college connected with the University of Sussex.
So there was this uh a great vibes player from back in the 60s, great studio player, but also, I mean, with played with Tim Buckley, and his name was David Friedman. And
Sure.
I did a couple interviews with him, and he said there are two things. This is what from our interview. He said there are two things I think I did right at University of Arts Berlin, and I reaped the fruits of that by seeing how my students developed on their own path.
Right.
First thing is I give my students the courage to answer their own questions. Number two, I'm very happy that most of my students don't sound like me. I
Yeah.
mentored them and accompanied them on the journey, but I never put them in any kind of constrictive musical prison where they had to do, quote,
No.
exactly what I said. To me,
Yeah.
the
No.
essence of
No.
teaching is accompanying someone on a journey where you're kind of on the same level, but one has more experience than the other. It's if you're not learning from each other, it's not a successful journey.
That's
So
it.
exactly, so he nailed it. But I just want to know from you. I mean,
Well,
because these kids come in and they almost expect some sort of, like you said, a wand, but we like it's almost like this, like, it's you're being graded, which is grating. That can
yeah.
be
Yeah.
great. And I just wonder how you make them more malleable, and get their confidence up so that they, at least know that there is no linear path to success in music.
um, well, there's music and there's the music business.
That's right.
The music business, I know nothing about how it works these days.
No,
I'm
I don't think
in it.
nobody does.
I'm in it. I'm trying to do it with the release of my record, but I honestly, I mean, they're finding their own way. First of all, the highest form of learning is social learning, without a doubt.
Right.
Lecturing the students, all you're going to get is like they're only going to pay attention to about 5 minutes of what you have to say. Yeah, that's it. So the so the so the so okay, this is how for me it all starts with this. It's all based upon intrinsic motivation. Because up until college, they've been dealing with extrinsic motivation, which means they're motivated by the grades they get, or they're motivated by the parents giving them a gift, or they're motivated by money or whatever. And college is where you should have the shift. And somehow this doesn't happen for everybody, and sometimes it happens for them after they've had the college experience if they have the right teachers. So intrinsic motivation falls upon three things. It falls upon their connectedness, their competency, and their autonomy, right?
Hmm.
Those are the three elements of intrinsic motivation. Those are the things that you wake up in the morning and you have to play, or you're hearing music when you go to bed at night. I mean, these are the things that are just in you. So I found that with a lot of students who necessarily weren't great players, who weren't really connecting with the music or their instrument or the other musicians, right? I found if you focused on their autonomy, their voice, and sometimes you have to point it out to them. Like you, I would always be recording some of the stuff in the classes, and and we'd listen back, and I would hear something in them. I say, like that. I never heard that before. That's amazing. And all
Right.
of a sudden, it gives them a little bit. Oh, I can, because that was done to me. I mean, I worked with Gary Window back in the early '80s,
Yeah.
and Gary heard something in my playing that I didn't hear, and he would always point it out to me, and he would literally kick my ass. Like, I'd be on stage, and he'd come and kick me in the ass and go, "Come on, play, motherfucker! I know
Yeah.
what you could do." And so anyway, so I'd focus on this, but I set up my classrooms, trying to make it as safe as possible. I set them up as basically like a workplace. These are all, everything we worked on was something that I experienced, either in the recording sessions or on stage or in rehearsals or writing sessions. And I was very into concept theories and threshold concepts, problem-based learning tasks, and workplace learning tasks.
Hmm.
So I would design these tasks where there would be a problem in the task, but there wouldn't be any right answer. I don't know if that makes sense. So they would have to struggle together to be able to get pushed through the threshold, the bottleneck, where they have problems come up in there, and that's where the learning. When you can, when you're confronted with problems, especially as a group, and you're trying to figure it out, that's where the learning happens. That's when there's the highest rate of learning. So the more struggles, the more problems, the more you're forced to change your thinking.
I just want to be
And
clear. You didn't tell them that there was no right answer, though.
well,
I mean,
maybe
what I'm
once in a
saying is that
while,
because I
once
mean they weren't. I don't. I mean, it was very deep what you just said, but I want to be clear. Like, how did you? Um, how were you able to alleviate that bottleneck for them by because they didn't know that there what that they were sort of just left to their own devices, but
yeah.
they didn't realize that there was no right answer.
Well, at the end of the task, there's always a piece of music on some level. With the concepts, I had some liminal space in there for them to work with.
Wow.
For instance, there was one where I said part of their homework assignment was to find a one minute YouTube clip of a commercial. And then there was a period when I actually was making some good money doing commercials, and as well as scoring for picture. And it's a great way, a very small 1 minute, where you write something on your guitar that you're going to play live, along with the commercial. So you're studying the actual, you mute the music that's in the commercial,
Right.
but you're actually writing to it. But this way, you're understanding what a minute of composition is like, for one thing, right? And you can do whatever you want, And so then they would come and they would submit it to, where they perform it for the class. I'd have a projector and they would play along with it, and the students would all do the critique. Occasionally, I would buttonhole it at the end, but most of the students would do all the critique. And then, but then, where I put them into the the bottleneck, so to speak, was when I get two of them up there together, playing to another 1 minute commercial that I selected. And so they were using their two pieces that they had written for their own commercials, and were forced to have to somehow use parts of it, listening to the other person, and create a piece of music that goes to a 1 minute clip they'd never seen before.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, all senses are open. They're listening, they're watching, they're trying to connect to another musician, and it becomes a challenge. It's just there's moments in it where it struggles, and they have to figure out how to work with another person, sonically, and they have to put their pride aside because they've worked so hard on their one piece, and here they're being exposed to a whole piece of whole new commercial, new visual. So that's one example of like one of the tasks. So of course there's no right answer to that. But we go through it a few times and then we listen to it and watch what we recorded to the commercial and they discuss about the things that work. Now there's something called essential questions. So I'd always would say to the students like, what about this piece of music is working for you?
Hmm.
Or for instance, is instead of saying, God, what did you say?
God is sound.
God is sound. So the question would be, what about God is sound makes sense to you? Or you always put what or how in front, not why, never why. And so it gets them thinking, and they create their own autonomous answers to that. So this one course that I taught, which I was doing a lot of this stuff with, um, at the end of the year, and I had to do this because it was one of the things that the school wanted us to do. They had to have the students answer some questions. So the first question was, well, did you guys learn anything? And of course, this course was completely off the curriculum. That's the thing. They allowed me to do this. They trusted me. Plus, they put me through school to get another degree in education. So they were happy for me to stray away from the curriculum and
Hmm.
do and practice these learning tasks that I created. And so at the end of the year, I said, "So did you guys learn anything?" And they all were like, "Oh my God, we learned so much. This was just the most amazing course we've ever taken. I learned this, I learned that, learned this." And then I said, "Do you realize I didn't show you one damn thing?"
Hmm.
And they just sat there puzzled and they thought about it and they're like, "Oh, you're right. I didn't show them one thing. I never showed them anything on the guitar. I don't think I even played the guitar in the class." Um, they all learned themselves. They put them in the environment with the challenges. The only thing I did was I created these tasks, which applied to everything from writing a 1 minute commercial to jamming to being in a band to like writing material to getting guitar tones, whatever. I mean, it was a wide range of different activities. Um, but they all learned on their own without me.
I mean, that is one of the heaviest breakdowns of uh, a curriculum that sounds completely inspiring. I mean,
But well, let me
uh,
ask you this. I
yeah.
mean, I mean, what did I learn in college? I mean, yeah, I learned a bunch of harmony. I learned some classical stuff, which I never really ever used except for when I did a string arrangement for Depeche Mode, which was like 20 years later. Some of that stuff came back. But, I didn't, where did I learn everything I know about music? Well, it was really being in the workplace.
Well,
It
no, my
was
question is where was college for you?
Bard College.
Okay, well, I mean, first of all, I mean, I cannot. That's Donald Fagen land out there. That's like freaking
Well, he was a lit major.
right. No, and what I'm saying is like, so that's a little. My feeling is like, and I want you to push back. I mean, again, you were in Berlin, and you know, in terms of experimental, abstract, just music in general. I mean, without Japan and Europe, I mean, I don't. They consume that stuff and appreciate it beyond belief compared to the States in a lot of ways. The 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 baddest cats in Tucson where I live, and I'm 47, so I'm talking kids in their 20s. Some of the baddest cats in this town have now dropped out of Berkeley because I just are there any comparable I don't want to even mention professors' names, but it just seems to me that there's an obsession, at least in the States, about having, getting prepared. Like you said, the music business is a separate thing, but how do you brand yourself? How do you wear eight hats? There's a class that Victor Wooten teaches on groove. I don't know why you need a class on groove when in the past guys like Steve Swallow, or Sco they were out playing gigs at the in the combat zone in the strip clubs three sets a night, playing milestones over strippers. That was the
Yeah.
communal experience. And like, I mean, even at Bard College, I mean, I don't know, maybe, I mean, I spent 14 years of my life at a summer camp, a half hour from you, called Scatico, which was in Elizaville. And I'm just wondering if Knox Chandler was just going down to the Rhine Cliff Hotel and playing music. I mean, to me, like
Oh
it
yeah,
was.
it was.
You went to the Rhine Cliff Hotel?
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
this is legend. This is beyond legendary because what I'm saying is, you talk about the social experience and that learning. There was such a beautiful matrix of that in this country. Yeah, at one time, you caught the tail end of it, and now, like Kenny Burrell said, the jam sessions that were happening at movie houses with Pepper Adams and Elvin Jones and Kenny Burrell, well, they take place now at the Student Union at UCLA. So I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
to me, like the fact that they didn't even pick up the guitar, and you had them in this synesthesia, psychedelicized learning realm, is just like that seems completely progressive.
Yeah, and after I left in the past 3 years, the school changed ownership, I believe, and it's like I went there. I went back there and did a workshop in February, and all these students were like, "We have nothing like this in the school,"
Yeah, you
and I was like,
see.
"Really?" And I was just like, "Yeah, we have nothing like this. This was amazing." Um, well, I went to Bard. It's interesting. I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to move to New York City,
Right.
right? And when I was 16, I just wanted to get out of here, which is Connecticut, and go to New York City and just be in it. And my folks, we fought endlessly about it. Right? My dad. So listen, no, I want you to apply to some colleges, and we went up to the New England Conservatory, and Rand Blake had this third stream program,
Now, my hero,
which
dude. Yeah,
which
you remind me of that cat. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's very interesting. It was funny enough. The gig last night was with Anthony Coleman, who teaches there at the third
Wow.
stream,
Wow.
and Joe Morris, who's a neighbor of mine, also teaches there.
Oh, this is
So,
legendary
so
stuff.
they all know Rand. But I went up there and I was 18 years old or 17, and I auditioned for Rand Blake, and Rand said to me after I was done, he said, "You know what you should do?" I said, "What? You should just go home, sell everything you own, and move to New York City." And I was like, "See," and my dad, and they
You
weren't
see,
having
come
it.
on. I know what I'm doing.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
so we did some research, found out that Rand graduated from Bard College. And so they said, well, maybe we should go look at Bard College. And at that time, Roswell Rudd was teaching there.
Oh my
And
God.
I was like, I went up there and
Oh my God.
I sat in on one of his classes. And I said, okay, I'll go to Bard. You know, my parents were really keen on the liberal arts thing because, I also painted and they just thought I could use a more rounded education than a conservatory. So by the time I got up there, um, Roswell had left, like quickly left. I don't know. It's just the rumors that there's some inappropriate stuff going on or whatever.
Sure.
So that first year I was there, I was taking like composition with Joan Tower and studying some classes with Luis Garcia Renart. These are all very classical influenced.
What year was this,
Uh,
by the way? What year?
this is not 76.
Oh, what a beautiful time to be going.
Yeah. And then
Oh
and
my
then
God.
but the money they had for the professor to teach the more jazz stuff at that time, what they called it, um, that all went to these visiting professors. Now, at that time, Carl Berger had creative music studios over in Mount Trimper, which is right across the river.
Absolutely.
So he was getting like people coming up from the city or people coming from Boston, and on their way over, they would stop at Bard and do workshops. So it was like Jimmy Joffrey, Leroy Jenkins, Ken McIntyre. I mean, all these amazing Carla Bley, all these amazing musicians were
Did
coming in,
I gotta ask you, did Rock Along Bob Moses ever make it there?
no, no, he
Yeah, okay.
didn't.
I'm just
No.
saying, like, this was, or Jackie Byard. I mean, that these cats were like, I cannot believe that these cats were doing workshops, because there
Well,
was,
they were a lot. They were like we got probably maybe a small percentage of the people that were happening over at Creative Music Studios.
right.
But I was driving over to Creative Music Studios and checking it out. Like
Oh my God, this
Carl
is,
would let me just Carl would just let me hang out. Now a lot of those musicians who were students at the time, including Anton Fear, who I wound up working later with it with
oh my God,
Golden
heroes,
Palominos,
unbelievable.
but like Mars Williams, Dave Buck, Ralph Carney, uh, 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 some of the other ones have more of a name. Um, Billy Littlelow,
Hmm.
Mark Kramer. I mean, these guys were students there, and they had started this band called Mind Control Salsa, which was doing kind of like this psychedelic Tex-Mex thing. Later became the Swallow Monkeys, who I wound up playing with very early on in my New York days. Um, but they but this is where I got exposed to like all this different kinds of music. That and then most of the music I got exposed to at Bard through my friends who weren't even in the music department. So it
That's
was
insane. Are you talking about like kind of like singer songwriter folk cats, or what? Who, or
no,
just,
they were all listening to like Henry Cow,
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
Henry Cow, and then Anthony Braxton, and then all this other heavy music. They were like filmmakers and writers. Some of them dabbled with instruments. I had a band where um, the keyboard player was in the music department, but the sax player was in the science department. The best sax player on campus. He was a science major. They were coming from wherever they were coming from with all what they were listening to. So all of a sudden, it became like this sort of oasis of multi ethnicities with all different multi genres, and we spend hours and hours in each other's dorm rooms, turning each other on to different stuff we were listening to. Um, but also going over to CMS because that's close to where uh, Woodstock was, where they had the Joyous Lake. So I go over there,
Well, now
and I would.
you're reading my mind, because I, well, first of all, one of the guys who, I mean, there's an album that was made. It was maybe 6, 7, or 8 years before you got to Bard, but it was called "When Fortune Smiles" with John McLaughlin, Carl Berger, Dave Holland, John
Oh yeah,
Sermon,
yeah.
and Berger. You know, I just, it's just flashing in my head so hard, is because I have a feeling that you got to New York in the early '80s, and I'm just wondering, did you cross paths? Because the guy who was very close with Carl Berger was the drummer from Medeski, Billy Martin. Did you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Esky Martin and Wood, they had an apartment on Avenue A,
Oh my God!
and
In
on like
Alphabet City, this is unreal.
the second floor. So the window is open. We hear them playing all the time. Yeah.
No, because that, you know what it is. I don't want to fast forward too far ahead, but the point is that there was still. Can you talk about that punk experimental scene? How fertile it was when you first got to New York.
Oh yeah, it was. Well, the thing about it was great. I mean, I moved to the East Village, where you just no one lived in the East Village, if really, except unless you were like an artist or it was dangerous. It was very
My,
dangerous.
my folks told me. I mean, I was born in '78, so they were like, I glorify that early '70s or period, and they were like, you would not have wanted to be hanging out there. It
No,
was
no,
rough. Yeah.
but it was exciting. And the reason we all lived there was because my apartment was $160 a month
Right.
for a walk through railroad apartment,
It's insane.
and and there were all these great little pop up clubs where and you go in there. There's just really interesting that all these bands like James White and the Blacks, and then the
Yeah.
Contortions and the Bush Tetras. Who actually I'm working on a project with Cynthia Slay from the Bush Tetras, but they're mixing you know like punk with some jazz with some disco. I mean, it was just a melting pot of music, and it was exciting time. It was exciting time, and people could afford to live there and do art. Like Steve Buscemi was the bartender at the Horseshoe Bar, and he could work there like 1 or 2 nights a week and spend the rest of the time writing and going to auditions. I mean,
Right. I mean,
that's what the
I remember not the East Village, but Richard Belzer, the great comedian. He went the when I interviewed Charles Neville. He when Aaron was on the run from the law, he moved up to New York, and there was a place called Catch a Rising Star, and
yeah
there's it's just it's like it was there. I guess the thing that's profound is just this sort of these opportunities for social learning in the urban center
yeah
without being
yeah
crushed by the cost of living, because the
yeah
thing is you were able to focus solely on the art itself, which
right.
does
And
not
that's
exist.
what that's what Berlin was like when I first got there.
Wow.
Before everything changed after COVID. Yeah, and it's kind of funny because New York City was like that for quite a while, and then that was when the burst of the bubble
Oh God.
of the whole what was it
Was it the dot-com bubble or
yeah the
yeah,
dot oh, that thing when that thing bursted fell on its face, right?
right.
And then I can't remember if it was before or after 9/11. It's usually those catastrophes coming out of it. People go, oh, here's a good place to invest. So they start investing in all this property, which raises the rents,
Oh my God.
and then it raises taxes for the schools, and everything just goes to hell as far as anything creative. And that's what happened over in Berlin. I got to Berlin. It's very easy to find an apartment, very cheap to live there, and you could and there's just so many places to play and so many circles of people that you can, do anything with, like those performance art, modern dance, all sorts
Oh
of
my
film.
God, dude. It
There's
was pulsating.
now I didn't see that when I went back there this trip in February. I have a friend over there now who's gone back to visit, and he's going like it's completely changed. It's gotten expensive. It's hard to find an apartment. Fortunately, there's still places to play, but I think it's gotten little bit more competitive. Um,
Can I ask you, Knox?
I,
I need to ask you this though. Like, you're sort of a genreless player. I mean, you're a chameleon in a lot of ways, but this change when things become, I'm just talking about from the music or the arts perspective, like when when things become more expensive, especially with students, the expectation is that you're going to codify a curriculum. I mean, do you feel like when you like can you really codify? And I'm just talking about specifically jazz and blues. I mean, do you feel like one of the greatest things, one of the euphoric things about teaching there before COVID was that, yeah, they trusted you. You had to take another master's, but it wasn't like this sterile, codified curriculum for trying to teach essentially conversational or individualized sound music. I mean, is that what happens when things get more expensive? The expectation is you have to have something complete.
well,
Yeah.
I don't know if that comes. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that I don't know. Um,
I mean, at one time in this country, we just had two jazz departments. We had North Texas and we had Berkeley. And I've interviewed the original teacher who was approached in '62 at a Stan Kenton camp, and they said, because the saxophone was the lead instrument in instrumental music, and they're like, we don't really have anybody who could teach jazz. And this freaking guy, legend, still alive, eating cheeseburgers. His name is escaping me right now. Jack Peterson. He went to Berkeley and developed basically the curriculum was like a 12-chair guitar group. It was with Mick Goodrick and John Abercrombie, and they were playing games. I mean, it sounds almost childlike, but it was like there was freedom to like find yourself, you know? And now
Although
it's I don't know. Go
that
ahead.
that's what I consider a good education.
Yeah,
I don't think you need school to become educated.
right. Right.
I think Rand Blake was right. Just move someplace and take it in.
Right.
Um, However, we don't always have that luxury. I didn't because my parents were my father was a scientist and my mother was the artist, and they were worried that an
Of
artist isn't
course.
going to
Yeah, no,
make
I get
it.
it. I get it. Yeah.
So I gave up and I went to school, but in many ways I'm glad I went to this school because that school they gave me the freedom. I don't know if they do that anymore because right now everybody's concerned about grades, getting good grades because that's where they get the financing and the
That's right.
endowments.
That's right.
And they have the students come out of the college and they're successful, they get endowments. This is it's a business. It really is a business. And there's a lot of things about institutions that I don't I detest. I mean, there's so much emphasis on grades. Now, I would say I had this one guitar student who's he's very successful now, and I remember he was all concerned about the grades, and it was a studio musicianship course, and I think I might have failed him, or he got a grade just above failing because he was just he got in the session and it was in a proper studio, and he was just rushing everything. Everything
Right.
was rushed, and you know, and so he had a really bad grade. He was really upset about it. I said, dude, this grade, this is an important thing. You basically failed. So what are you going to learn from it? What are you going to learn about when you're going into a session, not to be nervous and then rush everything? Because I know I've worked with you for 3 years. I know you don't rush. you
Right.
know,
Right.
so this failure actually became a really important part of his learning experience.
Right. And the
And
question is that the adversity, and the question is now a lot of these universities feel pressure to just dole out good grades in order to get funded, whether or not it doesn't really help the kid necessarily find their voice.
well, the point being, there's a
Yeah,
lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure on the kids to get good grades.
I noticed.
That's some of them actually miss the part of the learning experience. You
Well, that
know
is, it's
that
almost, you were so lucky because you sort of, even though you wound up going to Bard, it was probably a blessing. I mean, you grew up at a time in history when carpenters and union workers didn't make much less than doctors and lawyers, and you could self-educate yourself and get a good job without going to college. But now we have
right.
had this whole thing where it's like, and then the whole idea of just the tuition costs. But yeah, grading,
Well,
grading can be grating, very
got
grating.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, there's all this emphasis on you have to have a degree. Now,
Right.
I've never needed my degree. Even when they brought me in to head the guitar department at this college, uh, they you should have a BA at least, and actually you should have a postgraduate certification. But they weren't hiring me because of my schooling; they're hiring me because of my experience.
All right.
Because I had worked with all these different groups and done all this and that. That's why I was hired. So in essence, that degree didn't mean hasn't meant anything to me. I'm glad I have it, and helped me continue my education and education. But it definitely wasn't necessary. But there was a lot of emphasis on getting good grades. The PSATs that's a shit show, and
Total
it
shit show.
just.
Yeah.
But what did I learn from my high school experience? What am I or even like the more academic courses I took at Bard, the stuff where you're basically memorizing it and just throwing it back at them.
Yeah.
What was the learning there?
Right.
You know, Nah.
Did that student once he got over the shock of the grade, did he become did you ever hear back that that was a great learning experience for him?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm in touch with him. He's making records. He's playing like three different bands. Actually he was in touch with me shortly after that experience because he was in the studio recording like a lot. And he was like saying, what a gift to, because everyone, I mean, everyone's nervous. Light goes on, and you're like, oh my God, this is it. And you
Huh.
have all this pressure. There's got to be a point when you're not even thinking about it. Like I did this recording session last Saturday with Tony Garnier and Joe Stone, and it was like it was a 12-hour day. We did 9 songs in that day, and plus there was this woman filming it all. Now she's sitting there filming it, and we got to, and we just got to get on with it. Now, if that was my first experience being in the studio, forget about it. I wouldn't be able to play.
Well, that was like the Dennis Coffey. I mean, you had one song every 3 hours. You had to crank out a song. You guys were rocking them out, knocking them out. First takes.
Yeah, it was a burnout, but it was we got it done.
Yeah,
But the point being is that you got to get to a point where you're not thinking about anything else but being in the moment
that's
with
right.
with the music and who you're playing with and be able to listen. And if he was really not nervous, he would have been able to listen and be able to hear the groove that was on the track that he had to record to, rather than being nervous and thinking about, oh, I'm going to fail, I'm not going to get a great grade, I'm not going to graduate. All the stuff that comes with the fear of extrinsic dealings with up to that point. I mean, there's no room for learning if you're like focusing on the extrinsic stuff.
Knox, we're definitely going to have to do set two because I mean, I mean, I really love the way you're breaking this stuff down, and it's like you kind of come from that Max Roach school of deeds, not words, but it's like, you know, I remember I just wanted you to talk about how um, I'm not sure if you were an autodidact growing up, but you definitely didn't have flat screen TVs. You had the needle to groove, you had the radio, and most of the great jazz guys that I've interviewed they learned to hear the music before they learned to read the music. And
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
today, a lot of kids are growing up learning to read music before they learn to hear it. So Gary Bartz told me in one of our interviews that at Oberlin, he encounters a lot of kids where their ears are locked. They can't hear the music because they've only learned to read. And
right.
I wanted you to talk about it could be an example or how you have encountered what you have done with cats that you've encountered who to unlock their ears as much as possible because as much as I'd like to say, unplug your iPhone, we all have a computer in our hand or stop watching YouTube. That's what this generation does. It's a lot more visual learning and you came up with a lot more auditory learning and I wanted you to talk about how you get their ears unlocked.
Well, one of with the students at BEM, one of the first things I did, I'd walk in a room and I would detune their guitars
Right.
randomly, just randomly, and then have them play. So all of
And
a sudden
explain the value in that in terms of putting them in a vulnerable space.
they had to listen.
Right. Right.
I mean, they had to listen. I mean, they can't. They're not going to sit there and play their John Mayer licks, which are somebody else's licks anyway.
Right, exactly.
Uh, that they had to figure out their voice on that brand new instrument in front of them, and how are they going to have a conversation with, like, 6 other guitars or 7 or 8 or sometimes even more, and make music out of it. Um, yeah, put them in uncomfortable situations.
Right.
Put
Learning to
them
be comfortable being uncomfortable.
right. Yeah, exactly. Because that's all this is. I mean, it's learning to be able to sit in the uncomfortability of often unresolved situations.
Unresolved. I love that in music, man. It's true.
Uh,
And yet people
Yeah,
are so they're even today, the instantaneous information we just are fed, and people just don't want any of that sort of they don't want to sit in the mess. It really is painful for them. And
yeah, they
yet
don't
that
want
is the
to, and
most important thing.
but that's the point. They also don't want to listen to it.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
that's why their attention span is so short because they have the freedom to escape it instantly without just pressing the thumb down on their phone or whatever. They can go right to the next thing. They don't have to engage in it. I think it's sometimes what happens is it becomes uh, I find it as a 67-year-old man that I do it too. It's almost contagious.
It's no, it's impossible. I
Whereas
mean, dude, we're all in it. We're all in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what I find fun is to like force myself to just engage in something that's uncomfortable listening wise or even playing wise. Yeah, just to not to the point where it's not a thing, it's not adversity, where it just is. I mean, that's part of the process, and because we've gotten so far away from just like not we always want to be entertained, and yes, music is entertainment, but I think if you want to take it a step further, you have to be able to listen and engage in it, and even if it makes you uncomfortable listening to it. I mean, I well, more so in Berlin, but out here even I'll go out to see some stuff, and it's not very, there's some good stuff. There's most of it's not that great, but and this is one thing. Lou Reed was a friend of mine, right? And this
I
is the
cannot
one thing
believe you just brought up. I cannot believe you just dropped. I just talked to him, man.
Lou Reed.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I thought you said Blue Lou Marini. Go ahead, Lou Reed. Yeah, go
No,
ahead. Yeah,
Lou Reed. No, I was gonna say, how did you do that? He's
yeah,
dead.
yeah. He's dead.
I
Yeah,
said,
okay.
okay, you're tapped
I'm
into
going
some.
back and I'm pulling him out of the ether, dude. Yeah,
You're
yeah.
doing some fucking mind tripping shit. So one of the things I loved about Lou would go out see shows, everything, like every night, and
Right.
that's probably why he rejected his liver because he just didn't take it easy and rehabilitate. But
Hmm.
he would go out and I'd be there with him and I'd be listening to something and I would say it was just shit, but he was engaged and he'd say, I just find that one thing about it that I find interesting.
Wow.
And I just focused on that one thing, you know,
I
and I,
love that. I'm going to take that because, yeah, it's easy to shut down when
yeah,
it's
yeah,
that is so. Yeah, Miles was
yeah.
out all the time. Miles's liver failed. Miles was out too all the time. He was
You
always
know,
talent scouting.
yeah. You have a bad rhythm section, a singer sings out of tune, you know, but that guy playing the diddley bow, wow, that's amazing.
Dude, that is genius. Yeah, no, it's. I just feel it's in this day and age, especially in this late stage capitalism. Who knows where we're headed? It's just one of the last real opportunities. Is like if I was at New Blue, I would have been right in the front, having an out of body tribal experience because ultimately it's one of these smaller venues with these really top shelf and light and geniuses are some of the last places where the collective consciousness can truly be raised, which
Yeah,
is
no,
kind of
that's a
the
great.
only point, really,
Yeah, and there's two of them now. There's the one that's up on Ninth Street and the one that's down further on Avenue C.
Okay, so yeah, so there's two New Blues now.
Yeah, there's the bigger one, which is the one we played. But
Right.
then there's the other one down the street. Yeah, that guy Ilhan's done something pretty cool.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, dude. And he's just got his finger right on that pulse. And it's really one of the last, not just New Blue. I mean, I was in Pioneer Town at Pappy and Harriet's and just seeing, incredible original music, burning music, and it became a complete artistic show with lots of um, not clams, but just the set list got messed up and they had to kill some time on stage, but it became a theatrical performance. I mean, this is what it's about. It's not
Yeah,
about
yeah.
playing the same song the same way every night, which is just bizarre to me. And yet that's somehow how people make a living on the road
Oh,
these days.
that's that. They did that for decades.
Yeah.
You
I
know, I
mean,
mean, yeah, you
yeah.
have to. I mean, when you're with a band, some of the bands I've been with, I mean, even some of those groups, the set list never changed. So we're doing the exact same thing every night. And that's the thing. I mean, how do you keep your interest in this? Because the thing is, if you're not connecting on stage, the audience might be like, well, it's good, but it's mixing the X factor. If you're connecting with your instrument, with the other musicians, and with the audience, it's going to be the truth, and and it's going to be a good show. But if you're thinking something else when you're up there going through the motions, you're robbing not only yourself but you're robbing the audience. Now, again, how do you do this night after night for you're out there for half a year or so? You know, I would always try to find the little subtleties, the little things in it that I could somehow could focus on those things to make it sort of new and exciting every night. So even though it was the same notes, the same songs, the same band, I always try to adjust little things about it to keep me on my toes. That somehow the connection with the other members is stronger, and the audience is sort of hearing that and connecting to us.
Well, that's the
Um,
whole, we got to get it. We got to pick that up in part two is this whole idea of in-ear monitors because some people earplugs is fine. I get it. People want to save their hearing, but this idea of being ensconced in your own world, when in fact all my favorite music, really live and not in the studio so much, but live, the environment was part of the sound. You weren't walled off in your own little world, making sure that everything's dialed in perfectly. Is that
yeah,
if
but
it's
but one of the important things about the in-ear monitors is really for the singers. Because if the singers are battling against a loud stage sound, right? And quite often, you're going out there with amplifiers. I know people just think they have to be big, but the reality is that to get a good sound out of them, they have to be cranked up pretty high. Plus, drummers bashing cymbals especially is what will really destroy your hearing. That high frequency. These singers when they're trying to battle it, they start pushing their voice further than it needs to be to compensate. It's pushing them out of tune for one thing,
right?
and it's also not good for their larynx. And so having a mix where they can comfortably sing on stage is really important. My experience has been once we started using in-ear monitors with a lot of these people that I was working with, the singing just sounds better. I mean, a perfect example, I saw the Furs play last fall, and Richard sounds better than ever. But it's because he can hear himself.
Right.
You know,
I was just before we got to do set two. I have to ask you, did you please tell me about? I mean, this is magical because, like I said, I spent 2 years of my life, 14 summers in Elizaville before Rhine Cliff was ever built up near Red Hook. We used to go in. David Nelson would show up with free beer and chicken. God Street Wine was big at that time. I need
right?
to know what was your first gig at the Rhine Cliff Hotel?
Oh, so I was in college.
I
Like,
mean, this is in the 70s, man. This is
yeah,
blowing my mind, dude. I didn't get
yeah.
there till the
I
90s.
think it was. I was playing upright bass.
Oh my
Um,
God.
and I was playing like jazz stuff with I think it was Larry Chernoff was the pianist.
Please tell
Um,
me there are some recordings of this stuff. I need to
oh
hear
no,
Chandler on Upright,
no,
dude.
no, Did you not get my
Dude,
book?
I just got back last night. I haven't checked the mailbox yet.
Yeah, it should be there. Well, it's got a download code for the album, which is also on Spotify
I just can't
and
believe you were gigging in Columbia in the Columbia County area like in that period of time. It's just ridiculous.
the record has my upright playing. The record is it's a guitar album. So all the sounds you hear on it, other than upright bass and percussion, is guitar. Everyone, you probably I only identify the guitar in maybe about less than a handful of spots, but it's all. I had a friend, Peter Freeman, who used to do a lot of work with John Hassel, produced and played bass with him.
Jeez.
Passed away a bunch of years ago. He was a big fan of what I did. He was always like, you gotta do a guitar album." And that's what this is. It's a guitar album, even though anyone listens to it will think otherwise. It
Well,
sounds like synth. There's no synthesizers. There's no samples. It's just guitar, an upright bass, and hand percussion.
well, listen. I mean, let's uh let's let this breathe for a minute, but let's do set two, and the next time I'm back in New York, I'll hit you up because
All
I'd
right.
love to, if you got any gigs. I mean, our mutual friends on Instagram are profound. I mean, everybody from Adrian Harpam to Tony
Oh yeah,
Leone to
Adrian. Yeah. Oh yeah,
Osnoy,
yeah, yeah.
all these freaking. I mean, it's these are guys that play across the entire spectrum of music and are really like they're profound and they're the last vestiges of. I mean, you're one of the last vestiges of creativity and bringing people out of their comfort zone. So I mean,
You just reminded me. I gotta call Adrian.
call him, dude. We are. I don't know how we
I
could.
love
I saw him at New
I love
Blue
that guy.
with Jonathan Marin, and it was so fucking healing, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
It was fucking great, man. So anyway, it was such an honor, man. We'll do it again, and I'll check out the record and get back to you on it.
All right, wonderful. All right,
All right, man.
thanks, Jake.
Be cool,
All right,
man.
all
Later.
right, later.
Bye.